What's good, people? We are live. It's your man DL Saint. I wanted to jump on one more time today. I was on earlier talking about what was going on in Ukraine, and I wanted to jump on and do another quick one before I went to bed. I will be leaving Wednesday to go home to bury my father and be with family. So I'll be gone uh, Wednesday, and I won't be back until Sunday, and I won't be doing any posts or anything like that. So I'm trying to just throw some stuff up there now, food for thought, and then we'll hit the ground running when I return. Um, but I was talking to Suzette Speaks on her show a few nights ago, and we were talking about the the law enforcement incident where the young guy was killed during a no knock warrant. He was shot to death when the police entered. Of course, no knock. They just rush in with guns. The guy sees people with guns and he grabs his weapon and he ends up dead. So we were talking about that. We touched on law enforcement a little bit, and I thought I'd bring my dude Jswans, everybody's favorite, to come join us because he and I had this conversation all the time. We talk about law enforcement in America, and so yeah, man, I'm gonna welcome Jay Swans with some grown up applause since he doesn't like the kids. You know what? He gets the kids too. 'Cause I don't care what he likes.
The kids' applause is awkward. Really, like R. Kelly, get that off.
Exactly. That's right. I don't care. I don't care what he likes. We know what it is. So
Yeah.
so yeah, we're just gonna get right into it because we're not gonna waste a whole lot of time, man. We're gonna talk about law enforcement in America. We all know that it is definitely a problem. It's absolutely a problem for people of color, in particular the African American community, African American men. So why is this a thing? And we have our own
Yeah.
theories. So yeah, man, won't you crank it? Won't you crank it? Start us off with it.
Well, I think part of the problem is that I didn't call for the ISO. I didn't call for the Kobe ISO. What are you doing? I think part of the issue is that I think law enforcement inherently has been taught to. Okay, I don't want to say that they outright just like go after black men. Okay, but I think throughout history in this country that black men have been something to be feared, or to what am I trying to say here? Be feared or to be nervous about. So when law enforcement gets involved, when they go anywhere, they see a black person, they don't automatically assume that this person is the problem. They automatically assume it. I mean, there was a brother that was just shot a couple of days ago. I don't know if you remember that one, Don, where he actually disarmed the person with a weapon, and the police,
Yes.
when they shot him, they saw him with the weapon. So I think that they inherently just, it's a lack of training. I mean, it's a lack of training. I think it's a lack of diversity. I think it's policing communities that you don't understand. You can't take someone from, I don't know, I like to eat corn, Iowa, and then stick them in Detroit and expect him to understand everything what's going on, or just understand the little nuances. So I think that's part of the problem there. I think the other part is that you have people who go into law enforcement for the wrong reasons. Now, not everyone. I'm sure most people go into it for the right reasons, but some do. Some go into the wrong. They're on that power kick. And then I think another factor is the PTSD that comes with law enforcement. I have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement, and they talk about their different issues they have. They talk about the problems they go through. And I've often wondered this, and I've asked these guys, how do you go from, you just came from a house where some man just raped a baby. Okay.
And we want to stay away from the R word, man, because that'll definitely get us shut down. People,
Even in a good sense?
even in a good sense, they'll definitely. So just like people are accustomed to hearing grape, 'cause that confuses the algorithm.
Okay. Well, people are, you just come from a situation where there was sexual abuse, okay, done to a child. And, they tell you that the guy is, 6'4", light skinned and bald headed, and he, last we saw him, he was going down the street. And the officer, he sees somebody like that fits that description, somebody like myself, speeding, pulls me over, and I get a little mouthy. What do you expect? He's going to have a reaction. If I give him something, he's going to have something. And it's not because he's looking to get somebody. It's because he's just so frustrated. The PTSD thing is a big factor in it. And that's what I was trying to get at.
Nah, I agree with you, brother. And a lot of times, when these things happen, and it's people who look like us who are more often than not the victims of these shootings by law enforcement. People right away want to go to law enforcement and say, "Hey, man, there's a lot of stress. You know, hey, cut these guys some slack. They got a lot going on, and this sort of thing, right?"
Yeah.
I don't really subscribe to that,
Yeah,
but
I don't. I'm not on that cut them some slack thing. I mean, I see what you're saying, but yeah, I don't want that to come across. I mean, you're required to do a job, and if your job requires you to be stressed out, I mean, you have to be taught to mitigate that. So, I get it, man.
yeah, I get it. And my thing is, and I brought this up on Suzette Speak show, and we were talking to a cool brother, brother King out of Atlanta. We were talking about training, and now that's always my big thing is training. Training can't fix everything. I understand that. I accept that. However, effective training minimizes those things.
Yes.
It minimizes those things. So, and when you look at law enforcement, especially in America, training is an issue. And what gets me is that it rarely comes up, especially from the law enforcement community on camera.
Yeah, I was gonna say they can't. I mean, if they start talking about when my training is lacking, then that's when the lawsuits start coming. So they have to be real careful about how they say stuff. I mean, but you're right though, the training, and you and I have talked about what we feel the training. I think in order to be a law enforcement officer, I think it should almost be an elite status, like a special operations soldier. I mean, we as air traffic controllers, who, yeah, we're in charge of a lot more lives than law enforcement officers are, but we're not directly involved in, we don't carry a weapon and have the ability to end somebody's life. Okay. And we receive more training than law enforcement officers do. I mean, you figure to be an air traffic controller at a small facility at the lowest levels, you're going to spend a minimum of a year in training, probably a year and a half, actually a year and a half, including the academy time. I mean, I bet you most law enforcement officers don't go through a year and a half of training unless you're FBI or something like that.
Right, you have to get into federal training, and then you and I also talked about some training initiatives. And one of the things I said on Suzette's show was all law enforcement training should be federalized. The training should be federalized. In other words, there's one standard, and the washout rate should be pretty high. So when you want to be a police officer for Santa Monica, for instance, you have to have that federal training. If you've gotten it prior, that's fine. But if you've never had it, they have to send you there for that training. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, once again, like I always say, there's different levels to this. I think the use of force training should be done at a federal level because that can be standardized across the board. Use of force, any type of federal laws that they may deal with or may encounter that. I mean, that's the same across the board. But definitely the use of force training, weapons training and such should be done at a federal level. It should be a standard. Now, each local area, just like in air traffic, has their own local rules and such. So, after you complete your training at that federal level, like you said, it's a high washout rate. Okay. Not everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. It's a high washout rate. Then you go to your own area and you train there for a certain amount of time, and the standard should be set. There should not be a separate standard for men or women. The standard should be set. Okay. If you can't meet the standard that's required, then you cannot be in that position. And then also, I think that the salaries need to be increased. Definitely. I was reading this thing, but the salaries, we talked about this too. I think that the minimum salary for a law enforcement officer should be the equivalent of $100,000 a year, no matter where they are. Okay. So if they're in San Francisco, I don't know what the equation would be, but in San Francisco, they should make $200,000 a year. Okay. In Citrus County, Florida, they should just make $100,000 a year. The equivalency should be there because you want to attract the best people. Right now you may not be getting the best people. I can guarantee you, if I was a law enforcement officer and somebody's going to pay me, $15 an hour, $19 an hour, salaries do exist here in Florida for law enforcement officers. There are counties where they make $19 an hour, to put their lives on the line. I wouldn't do that.
$19 an hour or less. Last call for insight. What's good, brother? I see you. And he has a real good comment here. Maybe in addition to training, developing police officers with better decision-making skills and thinking about consequences when they make mistakes. Now, and to your point, that's what I believe effective training does.
Yes. Exactly. That's what. Yes, that's part of. When we say training, we mean all those things are included in that training.
Right. So
Decision making. Yes.
yeah. So we're Jswans and I, and it's not that we don't agree, but where we slightly diverge just a little, and I see where he's coming from. I would say that national training, that barrier is set. Like you said, it doesn't matter male, female. It's a standard. You got to meet it.
Yes.
And then you go back, like you said, it's kind of like he mentioned facilities in air traffic control. Just to give you guys a quick background of what he was talking about. As air traffic controllers, you can go anywhere in the national airspace system and work at certain airports. So we'll use Florida as an example. And Tampa, the big airport, of course, will be Tampa International. But there's also St. Pete, there's also Sarasota, and there's also a handful of other airports that are out there. So the smaller facilities, of course, would be the St. Pete's, the Sarasotas, the regional airports, or the general aviation airports, where just little airplanes kind of mess around in there. Then you have the bigger airports like the international airports, the LAXs, the Miamis, the Atlantas, where the real big jets come in and fly and do that. That's the bigger facility. Of course, it's going to take higher training standard locally than it would at the big facility as opposed to a small facility. And it should be the same way. Like, okay, once you've met that national standard of police law enforcement, then you go to wherever, Citrus County, Hamilton County, wherever, these small municipalities, at least you know you got the baseline, which would include decision making, which would include penalties. Like, you will know what happens if you're involved in a bad shooting, whatever they call it. And last call for insight. Yes, I figured that's what you meant, but I was just going to step further with discussion. Absolutely, step.
Hey! Tell last call for insight, man. You can't call your shot after you shoot. Come on now, you can't call it after it went in.
Yes, you can if it went in. Yes, you can. Wait, you wait for a second. Boom, money. Yeah, I got that. Off the glass. Run back down court. Off the glass.
But no, that's it. I mean, like national standard, like air traffic controllers have a national standard of training. We all go to the same place, which is the FAA Academy, which is in Oklahoma City. We all go there. All air traffic controllers go there. And I think the military controllers didn't, but I think they're going now. And one. All right, baby. But no, there's a national standard for us. And I think that, law enforcement should have that same standard. There should be a national standard. And then, like I said, and as far as like the qualifications being standard across the board, no. Not all law enforcement officers are created the same. Oh,
Michonne Denise, how you doing, love? I know Suzette's about to go live in a minute. Thanks for coming by and just saying hello. I appreciate it. We're talking about law enforcement, and that's Jswans waving at you. We're talking about a standard. I truly believe if there was a political push to increase training across the board, we would see some results. Absolutely, I think we would see some results right away. Yeah. But you know how political people work, though. Something like that just won't fly.
Well, it surprises me that the union doesn't. Hey, go back to the last one. What was that in the military? What?
Oh, that's the next one. That's a good one. But I wanted to make sure. Last call was shooting a shot. Want to make sure he got that in there.
Oh, is that what that was?
No, he's just being nice. That's Suzette speaks, people. And Ozzy, ex-military, especially combat vets, have the best point on this. Yes and no.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yes and no. Well, in the sense that we have, I think our points are valid when it comes to training what we're talking about. But if you're talking about getting combat vets trigger pullers and putting them on the streets in law enforcement roles, I don't know about that one. That's tough.
Yeah,
they're already dealing with tons of PTSD. They're already dealing with whatever they were dealing with on the battlefield.
Yes.
And then to put you on the streets, I mean, anything could set you off, and you don't want that individual to lose it with the kind of firepower that law enforcement has today.
Well, I don't know if even losing is the issue. I think it's more of, when you get stressed out, when things get difficult for you, you fall back on your training.
Yeah, and I think Ack agrees with us. He's like, no, we're talking about the training part. Yeah, absolutely, brother, absolutely, because you don't want to put Uncle Saint on the streets with a 7.62.
No, you don't want to put somebody who was trained in a Ranger regiment whose primary purpose is to close and kill the enemy. and they learn how to do that really well on the streets, without properly vetting those people. Because when you're stressed out, you fall back on what you know. To me, I like the ideal law enforcement officer. To me, would be like a special forces guy, a Green Beret guy.
Yeah, Green Beret, perhaps a SEAL. I mean,
Well,
because these guys know the difference.
Well, I say Green Beret because the special forces guys, that their primary mission is to train forces and force multiply. They're capable of doing those type of tier one, trigger puller operations, kidnapping and that such. But they're also trained to teach. They're trained to emphasize. I can't even say what I'm saying. Emphasize. Damn, I can't
Infiltrate.
No, I don't know what I'm trying to say, man. You know what? I shouldn't have had that drink. But but they're trained to work with indigenous forces. They're trained to communicate. That's why they go through that Robin Sage portion of training. Because you have to explain Robin Sage.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what we're talking about, Robin Sage, there's a portion of Green Beret training. It is the last portion of their initial training. To be a Green Beret. In fact, it's like the last couple of weeks. It's called Robin Sage. And what they do is they set a scenario where they'll drop an A team, and an A team is typically a 10 to 12 man team.
An ODA, operational detachment type thing, but
type of thing. They'll drop them in, and the scenario is that this particular A team, which is a training class, these guys are trying to be Green Berets. They're at the final stage. The scenario is we're dropping you in with guerrilla forces. You got to train these guerrilla forces up. You have to get these guerrilla forces up to speed on weapons, on tactics, on communications, on medical procedures, and engineering procedures. So basically, you have each team member has two specialties. They're either like the weapons sergeant, and then they're also the engineer, or like the medic, and they're also communication specialists. So I
say they're highly intelligent guys, extremely intelligent.
Very, very high IQ. I mean, there's no such thing as a dumb Green Beret.
Yeah.
Their mission doesn't allow for it because these guys will be dropped in behind enemy lines for indefinite periods of time. There's a pretty good movie about it. I think it was called The 12. And it was the guy who played Thor starred in this movie.
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about
Hemsworth. Yeah, and it tells about the first A team that was dropped in Afghanistan right after 9/11. And these were the guys that struck first blood. So Robin Sage is this final stage. And what they do is they'll bring guys like soldiers at Fort Bragg, and then we'll come in, we'll play the role of the guerrilla soldiers.
Yeah, make their lives hell.
Oh boy.
They tell you to make their lives hell.
Oh boy.
Doing stuff like you find out a guy's got a habit, he likes to smoke or he likes to chew tobacco. So what's the first thing you do? I want your smokes, I want your tobacco. Yeah. But what it does though is it gets these guys, it takes them into a foreign environment and forces them to adapt, become likable to the people around them, and the people around them want to help them, they want to serve them. And I think that's the kind of training that law enforcement, I'm not a law enforcement officer, I don't know what training they get, but I'm pretty sure they're not getting training to that level. Now, granted, that would be very expensive to put every law enforcement officer in this country through that type of training. That would be very expensive, and let's just call it what it is. The government's not going to do it unless they can get into that. How much did they give the military this year? 750 billion.
I think we're at $786 billion was authorized for fiscal 2022. I think I might be off by a couple million. Wow. I do keep my eye on such things.
But something like that, I'm sure you could take, a 0.5% of that and train law enforcement officers to that level. I think that the key is they have to have, in order for someone to do an elite job, which I consider law enforcement I consider teachers an elite job. I consider law enforcement an elite job. Any job that doesn't pay a lot, it's thankless, but has major impact on society, is an elite job. And I think that if you want elite people to do elite jobs, you have to train them to an elite standard. You have to get them involved. Law enforcement officer training, to me, it should take years. I think it takes longer to get hired by a law enforcement agency than it does to get trained, which is frightening.
Canada, by the way, I'm wondering if the issue is training or just the circumstances public with guns. You know what? A lot of people say that. And that's a real good point, bro. I ain't gonna lie. If you're just someone who's looking at a situation logically, you would definitely say that, well, everyone has a gun, so of course people are gonna get shot. Yes. But I don't believe that that's the issue because in most cases, when police officers fire on someone, that person is unarmed.
See, I don't know about that. I don't
I
know.
want to
You know,
say
you
in
know.
most cases, because I mean, just look at California alone. I mean, there are tons and tons of cases of people being shot by law enforcement when the police officer believed they had a gun. You might have someone who's running away trying to do a death by police officer kind of thing, and they'll point their cell phone at a cop, and in that split second, that might look like a weapon. Or they'll go into their pockets when the police is like, "Keep your hands where I can see them," and they'll go into their pockets immediately out of a reflex, maybe to get their ID or something like that. And a police officer might engage them. There's video out there that I saw years ago of a guy who's coming out of a store. You know, his car's parked in front. It's kind of like a 7-Eleven type deal. He's coming out of the store. Law enforcement rolls up on him.
Yeah.
Law enforcement comes out, has his weapon drawn. It tells the man, "Give me your ID." So the man reaches into his car because the window was open to get the ID. Police officer shot him. Didn't kill him, shot him. And then it was that case in Florida where there was a guy with special needs, and they were trying to
Oh, yeah.
trying to get him calmed down. And the guy who was the special needs instructor, the teacher of the special needs guy, gets shot by one of the law enforcement officers. That was in Broward County. That was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So I would absolutely argue that most police officers shoot unarmed people in America.
See,
But I would like to see the stats on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it.
I don't know about that. I mean, accidents happen, okay, and then you get some guys that like right there, shoot first, ask questions later because they're afraid. When I had my concealed carry permit in California, the instructor, he trained a lot of law enforcement officers and that sort of thing.
Well, your instructor was SAS, former SAS guy.
SAS guy, yeah. And he would tell me that a lot of officers, they're nervous. They're taught grappling skills and such, but most have never really been in a fight. They've never taken a hit, that sort of thing. And and they go into situations and frankly, see, look, I'm pro law enforcement, so let me just put that caveat out there. I'm pro law enforcement. I have a lot of friends that are law enforcement. Now, do I like everything that law enforcement does? No. I think there are plenty of bad cops out there. And I think there are plenty of good cops out there that are in bad situations and they make decisions based on their best interests and their best interests. Okay, here's an example. I have law enforcement friends, and I had a conversation with a guy last night, and I asked him point blank, if officers are good, if they're good officers out there, why are they letting bad officers get away with some of the things they do? And he's retired, and and he works part time, so he can speak pretty freely. And and he'll talk to me because I'm not going to put him out there. But his response was, "I get what you're saying, and but what would you do if someone if your partner if you depended on your partner to keep you alive, and your partner did something stupid, and you went ahead and reported your partner? Then you have not only your partners like, screw you, I'm not watching your back anymore. You've got everybody in the building, screw you, I'm not watching your back anymore. You got dispatch, yeah, don't send any backup to this guy when he calls for it because he's a rat. He's not going to say anything." Which now that is a wrong situation. That is completely wrong. And and he'll tell me that. He'll be like, "Yo, that is completely wrong." But he's like, "What do you do?" It's a culture that's within the organization.
Yeah, and I'm definitely the opposite of that. And I'm not anti-cop. I'm not, but I am not pro law enforcement the way it stands today. And it's pretty much for everything you just said. Now, I understand why they do the things that they do. I understand that. But Jswans and I have come from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So, I have spent the majority of my life dealing with those
Behind bars?
cops.
Oh.
No, they never caught me. I'm like, hey, fast as fast could be, you never catch me, bro. I'm like the gingerbread man. They could never catch me. They tried. And I ain't gonna lie to you. We make light of it, but here's the thing. Most of the time when I was running from the police, I didn't do anything. People were like, "Why are you running?" I'm like, "Because they're chasing me." I had no idea why they were chasing me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to find out because I know how bad that situation could be for me.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing, and we'll talk about Ack was saying you might as well retire. The way it stands now.
And I was just thinking that, I really was just thinking that, like the whole, you might as well retire. The problem with that is that, okay, so when he does, like a good officer does, you want that officer around because when he has the opportunity to do the right thing or to have a good encounter with that officer, you want that officer there versus because if all the good guys retire, you're stuck with the dudes that got beat up in high school kind of thing.
Yeah, and we got
I'll tell you what would stop a lot of it though, if with the qualified immunity thing, if they rewrite that law, all right, and then they start taking the what do you call it, the lawsuits and paying out those lawsuits out of the union's pension fund, the officers' pension fund, and I guarantee you see a different type of interaction with the public.
Well, let's save solutions for the last part of this. You know what I mean? And because we're gonna say all these things, and I hate to say all these things and just walk away like all is lost. I want to come up with some solutions, so we'll circle back to that. But the word is, word is welcome. Welcome to DLC and I Want to Know podcast. Me and Jswans here.
Man, get up your nose, man. Why you keep getting up on your nose, man?
I don't know. If victims had life insurance and companies kept having to pay out money, change would happen. Perhaps, and that's kind of similar. Again, we'll lump that in with maybe some solutions. So I wanted to pull up one article that
the one we talked about earlier? Is that the one from earlier?
Yeah, let me see if I can add to. We're gonna add it up here right now, and we'll just make it one big screen here. So this is from the BBC, May of 2021. How U.S. police training compares to the rest of the world. And I want to say Jswans sent this to me last year because I just looked so familiar. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and read the entire article to you, but I did want to look at some of these charts. How many police are killed? How many people are killed by police? And police killings as a portion of the population per 10 million people in selected countries. And we have the United States leading the pack, of course, well over 35 people killed by law enforcement per 10 million. Canada is next, and it looks like it's somewhere between 12 and 13. Australia is around 10 or 11, and the numbers just go down and down and down and down from there. And, so we were looking at that, and we're like, well, how does it, what's that has to be tied to training, right? The stuff that we're talking about. And right here, how long does police training take? And you look at Finland, over 5,500 hours of training to be a police officer in Finland. Germany, look at that, almost 4,500. Australia, well over 3,000. England, over 2,000. Canada, over 1,000. United States, barely over 500 hours of training before they put you on the street. You know what I mean? And think about that for a moment. There has to be, people always say causation isn't correlation or correlation doesn't causation, whatever. But poor training is going to lead to some problems. Last call for insight. Well, it's the lawsuits against the municipalities. Yeah, they do get the lawsuits, but somehow they manage to get out of that.
Well, not the money doesn't come from the police department. It comes from like the counties or the cities or whatever.
So it's coming from the taxpayer, which is crazy. And yes. Last call also said if there are any surviving family left, that's true. You know what I mean? If you don't have any family to sue, or if you're not in a position to even get yourself an attorney, not every attorney wants to take a case pro bono. I mean, there's no guarantee that they're going to win that money. Yeah. Attorneys, they chase money.
Well, that's another reason why, I think, you have these issues and discrepancies with stuff.
Right. So poor training leads to, and I'm just going to my bullet points real quick, false confidence. And I think Jswans hit on that. You get somebody who goes through training, right? You're going to be excited when you complete any kind of training. Like when you complete Boy Scout training, you're going to feel good, right? So if you went through some sort of structured program, you don't know if it's good or bad. You have no idea. You just know you completed it and you're feeling good about yourself. And you have your badge or your shield, whatever you want to call it. You got your weapon. You in your uniform. Right now you're on the streets. You got this false confidence. And when you're out there thinking you are, Mr. Big, like you're a Billy Badass, and some dude who's half your size walks up and punches you in the mouth because he doesn't care about your gun. He doesn't care about your taser. He has his own gun, or he's just a tough dude. He don't even care. That confidence goes out the window and is replaced with fear.
Yes.
It's replaced with fear. And that's what Jswans was talking about.
Say the first time, you get in a situation where you realize that, I might not be able to win this. What is the old saying? If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Everything. If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
You
And if
know,
you're
so
trained to be a hammer and you bought into the training, right? You're 5'8", 170 pounds soaking wet, and they put you out in the street and you got to deal with Jswans. Come on now.
oh yeah,
The moment that engagement begins, the moment you get touched up by a man who has real power, you understand at that moment that your training
yeah. Well, I mean,
sucks.
and everybody wants to go home. Everybody wants to go home, you know, and I can respect that. Now, like I said, the officers that like the guy that shot that brother in the back running away that threw the taser down, you know, I mean,
That was in
look at
South. I believe that was in South Carolina.
South Carolina. It was. See, I look at situations like that, and I think part of the problem is the police union will defend this stuff. You know, we talked about, you know, our union as air traffic controllers. You know, I mean, I understand that it's a union's job to defend their people, but sometimes things are just so egregious, you have to step back and say, we got nothing for you. But the fact that there's this, you know, the thin blue line that people talk about, you know, I mean, like I said, talking to my friends who are law enforcement officers, the ones that don't speak freely to me, you know, they say it exists. They do. They say it exists, and you have to have each other's back.
Of course, it exists. So going back to the scenario I just painted with the guy who gets out of training feeling all good, he's too thin to win. He's too light to fight, right? He gets caught up, and maybe he uses some excessive force. Maybe he violates some policy because he started his confrontation with somebody that he can't handle. He went too far. The bad apple buddy, his partner, is watching it, and his partner comes up and joins in, and they teach this guy a lesson. We're gonna teach you not to mess with us, right? So now, this guy has to back up his partner, has to, because his partner just backed him up.
Yep, and you know, and now we're both in it. Now we're both part of this. You know,
For life, it's like getting jumped into a gang. It's like being a set.
Well, they talked about that down in L.A., right? With that sheriff division down there. I want to say in East L.A.
Oh, they got straight up gangs down there. Straight up.
They had to shoot somebody to get initiated, kind of thing.
Yeah, going back to well, not to get initiated, but they were encouraging people to shoot them, and they had gang tats to reflect it.
Well, see, another example, and you know, and I keep bringing up the unions got to step up and say enough is enough. The officer here in Florida, the one that when they were, I want to say it was down in near Miami. I think it was Miami, where they were arresting that brother, and they had him in the car, and you know, the officer came up with his, you know, went to spray him with mace in the face, talking about, you know, you gonna F with me? You think you got something with me? And the female officer pulled him away because they have a legal duty now. Apparently, it's in there. It's a law now that they have a legal duty to intervene when officers are using excessive force. So she pulled that officer away, and he turned around and tried to choke her. And the other officer stood around, and then the guy, he was a sergeant, and then he told everybody to turn off their body cams.
Yeah, and that's two separate counts of assault. He assaulted the guy that was already in custody, and he assaulted a fellow officer. And what are they gonna do to that guy?
Well, he's on paid administrative leave while the incident is under review.
Right. You know how it's going to end. We're going to give him some counseling. It was about a PTSD. We're going to make that female probably a lieutenant. We're going to get her some money out of it somehow, get a transfer somewhere. Right. And they're going to cover it all up.
And my thing is, if he's willing to put his hands on another officer, I'm willing to bet it's not the first time that he's done something like this.
Yeah, not just another officer, but a female.
A female officer, which that makes him a punk anyway. I mean, on top of everything else, you know, I mean, that makes him a coward anyway.
So we've established that poor training leads to false confidence, right? And what you're talking about right here, it leads to poor or low morale, right? Because I'm pretty sure that female officer and those officers that were involved in that, their morale has to be real low right now.
Or even officers that are like, I didn't join for this shit. You know, I didn't come here for this shit. Yes, that's definitely going to bring morale down. I mean, definitely.
Right. And now you got low morale. There's also low trust in the chain of command, because you're looking at something like that. If I was on the scene and I witnessed this, like we get this man, we do it by the book. We get this suspect in custody and into the vehicle. He's still handcuffed. He's in the vehicle. And then some punk sergeant comes from out of nowhere, maces the guy, right? The other officer tries to stop him, which is her job, which she's supposed to do. Is you have a moral imperative to do so. And then this sergeant attacks her, strangling her, and I'm witnessing all this, right?
You know, and think about which makes it even worse. I mean, and see, this is the stuff this is where I have a hard time. I don't know if this officer was married. I don't know what these other officers were standing around doing, but I can't sit there and let some man put his hands on a woman like that. I just can't do it. And, so the other officers now, and this goes back to that whole, you're all standing around talking about, what do we do? What do we do?
And that mentality led to George Floyd's death. I mean, how far could this have gone? And again, we're talking about law enforcement.
Yes.
These people have the power to take your freedom, to take your life.
Yep.
So again, poor training leads to these things: false confidence, poor or low morale, low trust in the chain of command, right? And then we get into the pay. Jswans touched on the pay. Right, they getting paid next to nothing, $12 to $19 an hour, bro. You get what you pay for. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, you're paying me $12, $15 an hour to do this. I'm getting beat up. I'm getting spit on. All right, I can't retaliate. I can't act out. Then I pull over some drug dealer who doesn't want to go to jail that night for whatever reason, and he has a bag full of cash, $50,000, and he's like, bro, just take it. Just take it. I don't even live down here, man. I live in Miami. I'm driving through Tampa. Just take it. And I'm making $15 an hour, and my kid needs stuff, and the house, the mortgage or the rent is due. Gas right now is out as crazy. How can I live on that? I ain't gonna lie to you. I cannot be mad at that person if they decided to take that bread, right? And we're gonna jump on that guy, and we're gonna make that guy to be some sort of villain, but we're going to cover up for the sergeant who physically assaults a female officer and assaults a man who's in handcuffs inside of a vehicle. We're going to get that guy a pass. But if you take $50,000, you a bad guy. Nah, bro.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, man, it's a whole lot that's going on. I don't know how to fix it. I mean, because it's going to cost money. And like
it's going to cost money. Yeah. And like you said before, long hours, not enough downtime. You're not encouraged to go seek, mental help to help you with.
I'm surprised by that too. I mean, and talking to, my friends that are, law enforcement guys, because I've talked to them about the PTSD part of it, and, and they'll tell you they got issues, but they don't. The military, the VA has got a whole division set up to deal with PTSD and mental health issues. Law enforcement, they don't have the same thing. You take your Blue Cross, your Kaiser, or whatever you got, and you go to the doctor and work it out. Now, I'm sure once again, I'm not an officer, but I'm sure they have a hotline you can call, but I'm willing to bet it is nowhere near to the level of what the Veterans Administration has. And the big issue with that, people will be like, well, because military, everybody gets PTSD. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I'm willing to bet, and off the top of my head, less than 10% of the armed forces are combat units.
Oh yeah, it's definitely less than that. Yeah. It's definitely less than that. Trigger pullers, guys actually downrange. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the VA, like I said, they've got this PTSD thing. I mean, you go in there and tell them you need help, they are on that. And I don't think law enforcement has that same thing, which, once again, you get what you get. And then when these officers screw up, I mean, they don't report. I guess there's a national database that when officers are fired, it goes into this database, and their records go in this database for other law enforcement agencies to review prior to hiring these officers, kind of thing. And a lot of organizations don't put anything in there.
No, they don't, because they want those people to be able to go get other jobs. So you're notorious for beating people over here
in Cincinnati,
Hamilton County, but you can go down to Dade County and get a job next week.
Yep.
And all that went away. So, and that's part of it. Again, all that will be encompassed into that training. All that will be encompassed at that federal level. You can't get away. If someone gets fired, all your records are going to be right there. Especially with automation, as soon as it goes into the system, it's gone. It's in the system. You can't take it back.
I mean, our records, air traffic controllers. I mean, we could log on right now and see pretty much all our disciplinary actions and everything else you've had, unless you get that kind of stuff to get. But an example of officers not getting paid a lot. Where I live at now, which I'm all about law enforcement because I have nice stuff. Everybody hates law enforcement until, your house gets broken into, then you want them there to do a report. Right.
Right.
And, but the officers up here, I met a couple officers when I was getting my, my home inspection done, the pest inspection. They work for the pest company now because the pest company paid better. Yeah. These are young officers. And remember, I told you about that.
Those are the former, and those guys happen to be former military. They were pretty squared away.
Former military guys, they got into law enforcement up here where I live at, and they quit and they do pest inspections now because it pays better. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's to me is ridiculous. Like I said, there should be a standard, you know, and the way you make up that difference, you know, you pay them what you're going to pay them, you know, $20 an hour, whatever it is. But then the national government makes up that difference in that money, those salaries.
Yeah, the federal government kicks it in, and again, they have the money. The federal government kicks in the difference, and that all goes into the training. And it's not going to be like once you pass the training that you're done. It's going to be reviews. There's going to be training. Just weapons training alone. Just weapons training alone. I go to the range more than most police officers. That's insane, and it's not like I'm at the range every week. Think about that, bro. Their weapons qualification is very, very low.
Well, I can tell you in Sacramento, California, they're required to qualify their weapons, I think, once a year. And I want to say it's less than 30 rounds.
That's insane.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and you know,
cooks in the Navy get more range time than that.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
To be out there on the job every day in and day out. Act Ozzy, what's good, brother? In best case, go to poor side of the city and run up your arrest numbers without probable cause and get promoted. Absolutely. Again, everything we talked about here, false confidence, poor local or low morale, low trust in the chain of command, low pay, long hours, not enough downtime, all that leads to a bad culture, and that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think that's
what we're dealing with.
I think that's a huge part of it. Is there, you know, there's this culture, you know, in law enforcement. I mean, you know, I'm going to be a cop so I can crack skulls and bust heads, and you know, and that sort of thing. And like I said, and that's not all officers. No, that's not all. I mean, and I can't. I don't know. You know, I said I'm not an officer. You know, I know a couple guys, and I know them as civilians. You know, I've never had to deal with them as officers, so that could be a different situation.
Absolutely, it absolutely is a different situation.
Exactly. And I would say, and I'm also on their level. Okay, they would consider me financially, socially, that type of thing is on their level. So I would get treated differently if they saw me on the street coming out of a 7-Eleven, you know, at 2:00 in the morning off of Broadway. You know, I would get treated differently there.
Maybe,
you know, so,
maybe you weren't. I mean, you came down here to the Tampa area to go get a pizza and got harassed straight away.
He didn't really harass me. He was just silly.
No, that was absolutely harassment.
He was mad because he didn't, you know,
that was absolutely simply because you blew him off like a mosquito doesn't mean he didn't do it. It was absolutely harassment, and he had a young partner that knew it was harassment, and the young partner had to back him up, and even the young partner gave you the verbal cues that, yo man, it's good. I'm gonna get him out of here. He let the old cop feel like he's a big tough guy and got him out of there.
And you know, and that's a good example. Like looking back at that whole situation, that's an excellent example to bring up because, you know, he was the older, fat, dumpy officer, you know, where he's got to put two belts together to get him around his way. You know, one of those guys.
There's tons of them.
Yep. And, you know, and I pulled up in a nice car, you know, got out and, you know, went inside and did my thing. And I'm a pretty quiet, unassuming guy, you know, but it came across to me like he was trying to make a point. Like, let me show you something. And like I said, the young officer was kind of like rolling his eyes like, wow, why are we even here? Why are we doing this? This dude ain't doing nothing.
I guarantee you the young officer saw the back of your car and he saw the Pathfinder and the airborne wings and he saw the plate that you're a vet. He saw that. And I bet you the fat dude didn't even bother looking.
Well, yeah, because he just saw the car. You know, He just saw the car and that was it. And I mean, and once again, it wasn't the harassment like, you know, hands up against the wall. Nothing. It was no crazy. It was just he was trying to be tough, and I wasn't afraid. You know, I'm just staring at him, and that's exactly what the problem was. I wasn't backing down. I'm like, number one, I don't have any warrants. Two, you know, I don't need nothing from you. And three, if you do arrest me for something, I'm getting out that night because I have the means to get myself out. So I'm blowing dude off. Like he's talking. I'm like rolling my eyes like, whatever, bro, go somewhere with that.
Right.
But that was him trying to prove, oh, look, watch this. Here's a guy we can get. Yeah. Watch this guy.
Let me show you how it's done, youngster. Let me show you how it's done, youngster. That's what that was. And actually, pissing contest.
Yeah, exactly what it was. Now, mind you, that could go either way because, you know, once again, I have a weapon on me myself.
Absolutely. And I was gonna get to that point right there.
Yeah.
I was gonna get to that point. And it's because someone, and I think it was you, Actor, was talking about all the weapons, right? There's an old saying that an armed community is a friendly community.
A safe
right?
community. Yeah.
Understand? A safe community.
Yep.
And think about it for a moment, right? Because I've never had any bad run-ins with law enforcement in Florida.
Yeah.
It's never here in Hillsborough County, never in Dade County, once in Broward County, once. But in LA, I've had if you're south of the 10 in LA, that's all you're gonna have is bad run-ins with cops if you're black, because they do have issues out there. But that's where all the gangbangers are. There's a lot of crime going on out there. It's tough for them.
That's the Haitians down there,
Well,
Jamaicans,
the
Black lot.
Asians are not. That's down in Miami.
No, I said Haitians.
Haitians definitely in
The
Miami.
Haitians don't have no run-in with no cops.
Zoe Pound, what's up? Much love to Zoe Pound
Yeah,
out
please.
there, man. Because them boys right there don't play.
No doubt.
Them boys don't play. So,
No doubt.
but my point being, a lot of officers in this country initiate things,
Yeah.
and then it gets out of hand fast, really, really fast. And this is America. You have a right to defend yourself. Now, a police officer isn't untouchable. If a police officer,
As close to it as you can be, though.
it's
As
close.
as you can
But
be.
if he is in the wrong, right? Depending on who he goes after, it could be a problem. So, and I'm gonna share this with you, and we're gonna wrap this up here pretty quick. We're not gonna go long tonight. I did another video earlier, so we're not gonna go long tonight. But I'll tell you the one police officer.
Tell the truth. We're not going to go long because I said I don't want to be here more than an hour. Look at you, all nervous. Got the hand twitching and shit. Oh,
Hey, bro, I don't even need you. But like I said, I've already done a show about the war in Ukraine.
You're nervous.
This is my thing. It's not nervous. This is my
Yeah,
thing.
you nervous?
I've already done a show about the situation in Ukraine. And guess what, bro? Guess what? Hey, listen, real talk. You know what I talked about? Task Force Smith. No, Task Force Smith.
Oh.
So y'all go back and watch. Now y'all know every soldier in the United States Army understands Task Force Smith. No more Task Force Smith. No. So just so y'all know. But no, the one police officer, the one cop that worries me the most is the wannabe high-speed cop. What do you mean by that, Saint?
Oh.
I mean the guy who was too afraid to join the military, or the guy who was in the military and was too fat and stupid to get through airborne school, to go to Pathfinder school, or to be high speed schools, like the guys you're talking to right here. That guy scares me. Yeah. Not that he doesn't scare me, he just worries me, because they join the police department, right? They're in the street for maybe 2 or 3 years. The next thing you know, he's a part of special weapons and tactics. He's a SWAT guy, or he's like the sniper, or he's the guy that stacks up and goes in, those hostage situation guys. They have no training. Don't believe for a second that those guys went out somewhere and got some specialized training. If any they're like, oh, we went to Quantico. It was a gentleman course. You went there and you watched some videos and you talked to people who did the training. Yeah, you don't have any training.
Yeah, the guy that did the weapons training for he trained those guys, and he would talk about it a lot. I mean, and you know who these guys are. They're the ones that go to the range, and they go to the gun range, but they got on like their tactical vest and the belts on, and they got an AR with a laser, a light, a radio. Those kind of guys. The ones that everybody talks about. You became an officer because you got your ass kicked in high school. And now you want to be, now you think you're the man, and I think that's part of the issue too, is because I think in law enforcement, when you graduate, and I think I'm going to call somebody probably tomorrow, but when you graduate,
you froze. So it said when you graduate, and then you froze.
When you graduate from the police academy, and I said, I'm going to ask a friend of mine actually probably tomorrow, when you get on the street, you're automatically expected to be respected. Okay, like in your head, they have to respect you now because you have a badge. Whereas in the military, respect has to be earned, just like rank. You could be a private, but if you earn that level of respect, people that are far your senior will respect you. That sort of thing. And I think that might be part of the problem as well, is that you go in there, like, now that I've done this, you got to respect me. I mean, I would love to know how many officers, graduate the academy in the front of their high school.
A lot of them, and you keep saying officer. I say cop, because when you say officer, I tend to think of military people. I think of officers who are highly respected individuals. They're a high IQ for the most part, and they've gone through some real training. Becoming an officer is not an easy task. Do me a favor and don't say officer, man. We're talking about cops.
Wait, so like, what was that movie? The Mall Cop. You know, I'm not a
Yes.
security guard. I'm a security officer.
Yeah, we talking about we talking about cops, bro. And
Yeah.
again, this is no disrespect to you good officers that are out there. I just need y'all to step up.
Yeah.
I just need y'all to step up. Y'all know who y'all are. Y'all know who the bad apples are. It's not a lot, right? And act. He's like, "Are you serious?" Yeah, we're serious. These guys, these SWAT guys, they have no real training.
Officer equals uniform. Hey,
Officer
man,
equals uniform.
that means that cat at Dunkin' Donuts that gets my coffee wearing his little shirt. He's an officer.
Absolutely. Give him a salute next time you get your donut hoes, bro. And next time you come over here with some donut hoes, man, make sure you have some chocolate and don't eat them all before I get to that bag, bro.
Hey, man,
I'm talking to you.
I don't like chocolate.
You get some chocolate donut hoes next time you come over here. But yeah, man, we wanted to put that out here. We talked about a couple solutions, but let's do this with respect to the solutions. Let's do this. Jswans was talking about maybe having the police unions pay when there has to be a settlement paid out. People were talking about maybe getting a special insurance or having insurance that's tacked to their budgets, possibly. But let's do this. Let's do this. How about you guys listening and watching this? Leave down comments below. What do you think some good solutions would be for what we're talking about right now? Comments below. Comments below. Comments below. But seriously, I really want to know what you guys would think, even in Canada. Ozzy, we want to hear what you guys are gonna do up there. What you think we should do down here, eh? You know what I mean? After you get finished watching your curling match, do me a favor, type in. And don't get me wrong, I love curling. That is the one sport I don't understand it, but I love watching people slide around.
I like the curl of dumbbell. I don't like curling. I'm not going to pander to that.
I love curling, bro. That's the only thing I watch in the Winter Olympics, man.
I
watch curling.
Look,
I'll watch that, bro.
Look, you know he's lying. Yo, so how do you score?
You got to put the stone has to go into the middle circles. There's 3 rings. The inner rings are better, and then they got to scrub the ice to make the stone either go faster or slower or move left or right. Bro, I'll be watching that, man. Stop.
You know what I'm talking about. The way you score is you go up to a girl and you lie to her. You tell her everything she want to hear. That's how you score.
You see how one-track-minded Jswans is. I'm
an African.
I just like, bro, I'm African cats. Yeah, I'm just saying, bro. I like it. I'm African American, bro. I'm straight from the hood.
So look, he ain't into curling either. That's what he's telling you.
I'm straight from the hood. I'm into curling. He said, yeah. Look, I know. He done heard it. I do know. I know what I'm talking about.
Play this, rewind this back and look at him looking at his phone, googling curling. You're probably watching the video. Right?
My phone is on this stream. And I ain't got no iPhone.
That's weird. Why are you doing that?
Just so you know, it went me. I'm showing everybody my phone was on the screen.
That's creepy.
Man, don't worry about it, man. It's all about being high speed.
What's wrong with you, man?
It's all about being high speed. So, yo, thanks for kicking it with us, man. We just had these thoughts we wanted to get out. Next time I'm on, I'm going to be talking about. I've been looking at dating coaches. I've been looking at the BP side of the world. I've been looking at that, what they're talking about. You know, we're on the RP side here. I've been looking at the BP side to see what they're talking about. Yeah, and I got a bone to pick with a couple of these coaches. One in particular, she's out of Miami. I think it was Apollonia something, whatever. She seems really nice. She seems real nice.
Hold on. Her name's Apollonia?
Apollonia something. Like I got the notes downstairs. I'm taking notes now. I have to respond to react to her video.
Is it that bad? Like I said, man.
I'm gonna send it to you. I mean, it's just a couple of things that you said to really it just kind of got me going a little bit, just the way she framed it. And I even talked to one of my cousins about it, female, very high status. And I talked to her about it, and she was like, that might be
too far.
That might be a little bit too far.
Yeah. And that's what we talked about, man. Like I said, I'm trying to learn this blue pill, red pill stuff.
And somebody jumped on the chat and sent me a message saying that if you use you can say RP as opposed to using the word, because that's another one that they will, which was you can say the BP all day long, but if you say the RP, I guess they will come and that'll hurt your channel. I didn't know that.
Wait, what's the BP? Butt plug? Like what is that?
Blue. One is R pill, the other is B pill. So I'm just learning, bro. I'm just learning. It's weird. It's weird, man. I'm learning. So look, hey, thanks for hanging out with y'all, man. Again, let us know what y'all think as far as solutions, and we're going to revisit this law enforcement thing. Jswans is trying real hard to get one of his buddies. We're going to try to get somebody from law enforcement to actually come on with us and we can have a real good discussion with someone who's actually in the field and at a local level, not a federal
Yeah.
level. I
You
know
know
I
what?
know plenty of federal guys, but I want to talk to the local guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we get like somebody to do like that. What's that general discharge guy that talks about the different jobs in the military? Where he's I disguise my voice because I don't want you guys to know that I'm
Yeah,
really sitting on my couch at home and I'm a nerd.
yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that. Everything he knows is from Call of Duty. Like that guy. Yeah, we get that. Absolutely. So, yo, thanks for hanging out with us, man. We hope you had a good time. I'll see everybody. I'll holler at everybody that was in the chat. Thank you so much. Thanks for helping me build this thing, man. We're almost at 250 subs, and we just got started, man. We're gonna keep it rolling. That's Jswans. I'm DL Saint. I'll talk to y'all later.